Uh, do you have a photographic memory? Can you remember anyone like this? Like when you see them and you remember every detail about them? Well, congratulations. But if you are very forgetful like me, which means you keep forgetting, then also stay in this lesson, because in this lesson we are going to increase your word power about remembering someone or remembering something. How do you talk about it? So stay with me to talk about your memory. This is Michelle, your tutor. So now we are going to look at the words to talk about memory. Okay, the first word that we have is to recall. What do you mean by recalling or recollecting? Okay, so as you can see, we have the prefix re in these words, which means that we are trying to get something again. And what are we trying to get again? Maybe we are trying to remember something. So you use these two words as an alternative for remembering. So you could say, I can recall that Emma had long brown hair. Okay, so this way you are saying that I can remember that Emma had long black hair or brown hair, but you're trying to replace it by the word recall. Okay. The next word that we have is recollect, and as I told you that this can also be used as an alternative for remembering, you could say that I can't recall his name, which means you cannot remember his name. Now, as you've seen, we are using can with these two words, which means that these two words are an ability, whether you can remember something or you cannot remember something. Okay. The next one that we are going to look at is a phrase for remembering something. Cast your mind back. So this is a verb, cast. Have you ever seen the sailors or maybe the fishermen casting the net into the sea to draw the fishes or to catch the fishes? The same way, we can cast our memory back to catch all the memories, okay? To remember something from the past. So if you're casting a net, you're going to catch the memories. But here you're going to cast your mind, because we obviously can't cast a net in the past. So we are going to cast our mind back into the past to remember about something that happened. But it's not easy to cast a net. The same way, it's not easy to cast your mind back. We require effort. So whenever you have to put in some effort to remember about someone, you say, cast your mind back. So remember with an effort. So if you're trying to remember something difficult from the past, which you are not able to remember completely, you'll say, cast your mind back. To use it in a sentence, you could say that, cast your mind back to that evening. Didn't she seem so sad? So you're trying to remember something from the past, and you need to put in some effort for it. The next one we have is bring or call it to mind. So here again, you're trying to remember something from the past, and this is a phrase just like cast your mind back. It means to remember something. This phrase is particularly used to remember a name or a face from the past. So you could say that, I remember his name, but I can't call his face to mind, which means you cannot remember the person's face, but you remember his or her name. So you'll say, I remember her name, but I can't call her face to mind, okay? Or I can't bring her face to mind. Great. Now, let's look at the next one that we have. Rings a bell. So, whenever there's a bell which rings suddenly, it reminds you of something that you've heard before or seen before. Sometimes if you hear a name, like if I hear the name, somebody says Louis Green, and they'd be like, do you know her? And I'd be like, yeah, the name rings a bell, but I can't remember where I heard it. So here, something sounds familiar, but you don't know why, okay? Rings a bell. Familiar, but don't know why. Okay, so here we have looked at different words and phrases for talking about remembering something, okay? To talk about remembering. What we have next are different words for a particular type of memory, okay? So do you have a vivid memory? Remember in the beginning of the lesson, I said that do you have a photographic memory? Having a photographic memory is same as vivid memory, which means that it is very clear in your mind. You can clearly remember the incidents or the person. Maybe you know the date and the time of the day when you first met your husband, okay? So you have a very vivid memory. Powerful memory. And you could also say photographic for this, that you remember all the precise details. So you could say that I have a vivid memory of when I first met him, which means you clearly remember the day and the time about when you first met him. The next one that we have is a vague memory. So vague is something which is not clear. So when I say something like that, you don't know what am I talking about. It's not clear. You've got an idea, but it's not clear in your head what I'm talking about. The same way, vague memory is something that you're not clear about, that you can't clearly remember. Can't remember clearly. So if you want to talk about something that you can't remember clearly, you could say that I have a vague memory of going there after work, or I have a vague memory of going to a restaurant after work, all right? Which means that you don't clearly remember. Okay. Whether you have a vivid memory or a vague memory, there's a high chance that even a vivid memory can get faded, which means it can become less clear. So when you paint your walls fresh, after about 3 years, you see that the paint has faded, which means it has lost its color. The same way, if you can't remember something clearly, it has lost its color and it's now faded. So it's possible that a vivid memory can become faded, become less clear. Okay, the next word that we have is a flashback. Now we are going to look at a set of words that we talk about memories that come to us suddenly, all right? So what is a flash? Obviously, when you click a picture, you turn on the flash or you turn off the flash. And the flash is very sharp and bright and it comes on the screen, on the camera suddenly, right? The same way, we can have a flashback in the past. And a flashback is usually used for an unpleasant memory, means a not so good memory. So if you remember something from the past which is not so good, you could say that I had a flashback from the past, okay? So remembering something sad from the past, suddenly. I often have a flashback of my first day at school, which was pretty bad, trust me on that. And the next one that we have is flooding back, okay? So a flashback is one memory that appears suddenly in your mind from the past. But flooding back, obviously like a flood, like a lot of water, you have a lot of memories from the past which suddenly appear in your mind, okay? So sometimes when you go to a place, let's say, if you revisit your school, and you have that particular smell of the building that you remember. So you could say that as I walked into the building, I had a flooding memory from the past, which means that you had lots of memories from your school days. Okay, now the last one is a blast from the past. This is sometimes when you see a person, suddenly you go to a party and you meet a person that you were not expecting to see, and maybe you met this person 7 or 8 years ago, maybe that person is your school friend, and that's when you have a blast from the past. You could say that the other day I went to the party and I saw Andrew talk about a blast from the past. That was it, which means that you suddenly saw Andrew and that was an absolute surprise for you. So a surprising memory. I hope with this lesson, it's easier for you to talk about the past, even if you're very forgetful. But if you are, then make sure you watch this lesson again and don't forget all the words and phrases that you learned in this lesson. Be sure you use them. Thank you. Bye-bye.